Hey everybody, I'm Dylan with ON1, and today I'm going to be showing you how to get started in ON1 Photo RAW. I actually have Nathan writing along with me, and he'll be fielding any questions you have. So if you have any questions throughout the webinar, feel free to post them inside of the Q&A, and Nathan will stop me if he has a bunch of them, and I can answer them throughout the webinar. So today, I'm really excited to give you a tour of ON1 Photo RAW. I'm going to show you how you can find and manage your photos, as well as edit, enhance, and share them. If you've never heard of ON1 Photo RAW, it combines the simplicity of a photo browser with the power of a RAW processor and a professional effects engine, all inside a layered, non-destructive workflow. I like to think of it as the best of both worlds between Photoshop and Lightroom combined, and you don't have to rent it. You can simply pay one fee and you own it outright for life. So at the heart of ON1 Photo RAW is a very powerful image organizer and browser. You don't even have to import or catalog your photos inside of Photo RAW to actually access them. You can easily just point Photo RAW to where they're stored, whether it's on your camera's hard drive or a hard drive on your computer or just an external disk. All you have to do is point Photo RAW to where they're stored and you can instantly access. So if I go to my folders here and I scroll down and I find a group of files that I like to look at, I can instantly look at these photos and browse through them without having to import them actually into the program. Another great way to look at your photos is through the film strip view mode. To access the film strip view mode, you can easily do that by clicking on this icon here, or you can hit F on your keyboard. Let me maximize this for you guys, sorry about that. So you can hit F on your keyboard to access the film strip view mode, and then you can instantly browse through your photos that way. I mean, incredibly fast. So if you have a huge library of photos, it's easy to look through them all. And once you find a photo that you want to edit, you can easily do that. But first, if you want to browse through your photos and organize them further, you can cull them inside of the film strip view mode too. You can cull and rate. So if I have this 4-star photo here, and I wanted to turn it into a 5-star photo, I could do that by simply clicking on the star ratings here, or I could simply hit 5 on my keyboard, and it'll turn it into a 5-star photo. I can also use different ratings such as colors. I can also like or dislike, and that easily allows me to rate my photos so later when I'm organizing, I can find them. I can also, if I go up to here and I go to my photo settings, oops. Sorry, one sec. Oh, if I go to my photo settings and hit auto advance, now if I rate a photo, so I'll go to this photo and I'll rate it a 5-star photo. It automatically advances to the next photo so I can easily rate it. And I can continue to do that and cull and organize through my photos. So say you go back from a shoot and you have a bunch of photos that are kind of similar and you want to compare them, you can easily do that inside of Photo RAW with compare mode. So say I have these group of photos here and I want to compare them side by side, I can easily do that by heading to compare mode. And now I can compare my photos side by side to pick out the ones that I like best that have a better expression, say they have better lighting or the focus is sharp. Also, if I have lock, pan, and zoom selected, I can simply click on these photos and I can zoom around to really find which photo I like. If I like a photo and I want to remove the others, I can easily do that by hitting the slash key on my keyboard. And looking for your photos is also super easy in Photo RAW. So if I want to search for a photo, and say I shot a photo on the Oregon coast, and I know I shot it in the morning. So I can choose a different filter to use for time of day, and I can select morning, and this will pull up all my morning photos that were shot at the Oregon coast. And I have this photo here that I know the sunset photo that I was looking for that I shot on the Oregon coast in the morning. So it's easy to find your photos without even browsing for keywords or anything. Photo RAW is going to browse through names of folders and a bunch of indexes of other different file names to find your photos. You can also easily, once you have a group of photos that you like, you can easily go in here and you can create different albums or subfolders. You can even rename, delete. So if I wanted to rename a group of photos, I could easily click on them. I could right-click, and I could rename the files. I could also create a subfolder for these photos by right-clicking, adding a subfolder, and it'll move them into a separate subfolder. And this will be on the disk as well so that you stay organized throughout your workflow. You can also drag and drop photos to move them. You can drag and drop photos into different folders to move them. So it's all pretty easy and intuitive to organize your photos inside of Photo RAW. And if you do want to import your photos into Photo RAW, rather than just browsing through them on whatever disk they're stored on, you can do that as well. So if you want to import your photos, simply go up to File and Import. And now you can import your photos directly into Photo RAW or wherever you want them to be stored. So you can easily check none, check all. You can select different photos that you want to be imported. And once you have the ones that once you have the photos selected that you want to import, you have all of these different options to import them. You can choose a different destination. You can back up the files if you want to. You can rename. You can add metadata. If you have a unique look that you want applied to all of these photos, you can add that as well. You can also edit capture dates. So that's about it for the Browse module. Are there any questions, Newt?
I don't see any questions so far, Dylan. One just popped up. Jose would like to know, if you're browsing, will it take up more space on your hard drive, and will it use a lot of RAM? So I think you're asking, Jose, if you're just browsing, if it will take up space on your hard drive and use more RAM. I'll go ahead and answer. No, it will not. There will be some CPU usage going on when you are doing this. If you're just browsing, obviously you have an application open, so any application is going to use CPU. But as far as taking up space in your hard drive, no. It would only use allocate recent memory. It wouldn't write anything to your hard drive. I hope that helps answer your question. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to use the Q&A option there down the bottom of the webinar window, and I'll be happy to relay those to Dylan for you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Newt. That was a great explanation. So on to develop. So say you found a photo that you want to develop and you want to start processing. You can easily do that inside of Photo RAW. Just reset these real quick. So say I have a photo and I want to bring it back to life to the way it looked when I shot it. I can easily do that by going inside of develop. Photo RAW, even though it's a photo browser and organizer, it's an incredibly powerful RAW processor. So you can bring even the darkest of shadow tones and the lightest of highlight tones to life within your photo. And I'm actually just going to remove this side panel here. So now we can look at it bigger. Okay, so say I want to bring this photo back to life. What I like to do when I first start editing a photo is I like to hold down my J key. And what my J key is going to do is it's going to show me my true white and my true black in my photo. And you'll see up here on my sky and in the clouds, there's quite a bit of true white in here. And that's all of the true white in my photo without any detail. So what I want to do to turn that down is I'm just going to decrease the exposure until I have about 2% of that left. Now, what I want to do is I'm going to pull up on my shadow slider to reveal all of the darker areas in my photo. Photo RAW has an incredibly powerful shadow slider. As you can see, it basically brought out all of those shadow details within our photo. So say that I've edited this photo a little bit and brought it back to life. If I want to sync these settings with other photos, I can do that easily by going back into my film strip view mode. So if I hit F on my keyboard, it'll bring up my film strip view mode. Now, if I want to sync these settings with other photos, I can simply select them. I can head over to Sync. And it will sync these settings onto the other photos. So there's a few other things I want to do to this photo real quick. And what I like to do after I start dealing with the basic tonality of the photo is I like to crop it. So I'll head over to my crop tool, and I'll hold down my shift key. And I'm just sort of going to pull it down, and I just want to pull it down a little bit to crop out some of the area on the bottom that wasn't very interesting in the photo. Also, a great tool inside of the crop tool is the leveling tool. So if I grab this leveling tool and I drag it across a horizontal line, I can level my photo so that it's straight. And I can just hit Enter on my keyboard, and now I'm back to editing. So now that you've developed the overall tonality for your photo, you can start retouching. So there's a few different retouch tools inside of Photo RAW that you can use. There's the Magic Eraser brush, which is great for removing objects such as people or little areas in your photo that have different contrast. So if I want to remove this little area right here, of this puddle that's kind of distracting to the eye, I can easily brush over it. And it's going to use content-aware technology to fill that area. Another great tool is the retouch brush. And the retouch brush is great for little objects on your photos, such as little dust spots or power lines or even birds and skies. It's pretty great for using that. So I can just do the same thing like I did before. And I'll just brush over this little area. And it'll instantly remove it. There's also the clone stamp tool. And the clone stamp tool is more of an advanced retouch tool. So I'm not going to touch too much on that today. But if you do want to use the clone stamp tool, I have a tip of the week video coming out actually today that explains more in depth on how to use the clone stamp tool. So stay tuned for that. So now that I've basically developed the overall tonality for my photo and I've retouched it a little bit, removed some of those dust spots, what I like to do is I like to use a local adjustment to deal with specific areas on my photo that I want to process. So if I head over to local adjustments, and it's going to add a layer for me automatically. Well, I want to set that layer to darken. And I just want to darken this area of the clouds here to bring back some highlight detail. So I'm going to grab my local adjustment gradient, and I'm just going to drop it right there. And you'll notice that it only darkens that top above and leaves this bottom part alone. I can also deal with the opacity of this adjustment. I can make it deal with the vibrance. I can use different styles in here. I can even create my own different, I can even create a style in here, and I can add it here to have a new preset. So when I add a local adjustment later, I can click on that preset and it'll add that style instantly. I can also deal with different colors, the tint, the temperature. Basically anything I can do inside of develop, I can sort of do inside of these local adjustments minus a few different controls. So I'm actually just going to reset this, and all I really want to do is pull down on the exposure, and I'm just going to boost its saturation a little bit. So now we've easily just developed that photo using only our shadow slider, our exposure slider, a couple of retouch tools, and a local adjustment. And don't worry if you shoot HDR Panel, because ON1 Photo RAW can do that as well. So if you are a pano shooter, you can easily just find your photos, and you can select your photos that you shot. And if you want to create a pano, just head over to the pano icon. And it's going to automatically lay them out inside of a sphere to give you sort of that 360-degree typical panoramic look. It's going to compose them inside, just like that, inside of a sphere, so you get that 360-degree look as if you were shooting across a scene. And once you're in the panorama options, you can deal with different types on how it stitches them together. So there's spherical, which I was talking about as it lays it out inside of a sphere, but you also have collage, which if you say you have an art piece on a wall and it's super long, you could stand in one spot, take a photo, walk down the line, take a photo, walk down the line, so on and so forth until you've captured the entire scene. And then you can stitch that together inside of collage. You can also deal with the different edges. So it's going to crop it for you, or you can warp to fill. I usually just like to use crop. And then you can deal with different file sizes. And also you can pick where you want it to open up in. If you want to open it up in Develop or Effects to start editing, you can simply click one of those and it'll open up there for you. You can also create HDR super fast inside of ON1 Photo RAW. Our HDR engine is the best in the business. So if you have a photo, or you have your auto exposure brackets, so I have my photo here that I was exposing for my shadow details. I have my photo here that I was dealing for my highlight details, and then my normal exposure. So I can quickly grab my auto exposure brackets, and I'll head over to HDR. And you'll see how fast it will create your HDR preview. And now you can instantly start editing your HDR photo. It's the fastest HDR engine in the game. So now inside of HDR, you have a ton of different controls to edit your HDR photo. You can deal with the deghosting, which is basically going to deal with the motion across your auto exposure brackets. So if you have that on off, it's going to leave the motion on your photo. And if you turn that on very high, it's going to try to take away the motion in your photo. You can also pick which photos you want as your base exposure. You can also pick which photos you actually want included inside of the HDR. So if I turn this photo off, it will remove that from my HDR and it'll darken the image. You can also choose a default look that ON1 Photo RAW has created for you. You can choose natural, natural auto, or surreal. I like to stick with natural. And then again, you can choose where you want them opened up in. I usually like to have them open up inside of Develop so I can instantly start editing. And then, like inside of Develop, you have all of the different tone and color controls. So if you deal with your exposure, so if you turn it down here to bring back some of those highlight details, and then you boost the shadows, all of these edits that you do inside of the tone and color within HDR are re-editable. So if I save this photo and went back inside of Develop, these settings would be applied and I could readjust them as I please. You also have your HDR look, and this is where you're going to create sort of that HDR look for your photo. You can either choose a natural look or a surreal look, or you can create your own. By dealing with these compression sliders, you can create a more surreal look or a more natural look. You can also deal with the detail to make it softer, crunchier, whatever you like. I really like to just stick with natural, and then I usually just pull up on the clarity a little bit to bring back some detail. And now on to my favorite part of ON1 Photo RAW, which is the effects engine. ON1 Photo RAW has an incredibly powerful effects engine that allows you to edit photos super creatively, and you can easily just stack and blend filters as you please. So if I grab this photo here, and I'll head into Effects. And what I like to do when I'm first starting out in Effects is I like to use the presets. So if you look to your left here, you have these different presets inside of Photo RAW. And you can easily just go into a category, and if you want to see the presets larger, you can click this button here, and it'll make them larger. You can easily make them even bigger by using this thumbnail slider. And now, once you find a preset, you can instantly just click on it, and it'll add that preset onto your photo. Once I added that preset, it brought out all of these effects for me and added them to my photo. And all of these filters are re-editable, so once you add a preset, you're not stuck with that look. You can go in and readjust as you please. You can turn them off. You can deal with the opacity. What I want to do, though, is I just want to add a little bit of detail to her jeans and her shirt here without adding detail to her skin and the background. So what I want to do is I'm going to go to Add Filter, going to add Dynamic Contrast. And once I apply that dynamic contrast filter, it's going to be applied to the entire photo. So what I want to do is I'm going to head into my masking options, and I'm going to grab my perfect eraser, which is going to separate the tonalities from the foreground and the background. And I'm just going to increase my brush size by hitting the bracket keys on my keyboard. And now I'm just going to brush out this effect or filter from the background. So if I start brushing and I hit view on my mask mode, now you can see that this perfect brush is separating the background from the foreground, and it's taking that dynamic contrast off of the background and leaving it on her shirt and pants. Now if I turn this on and off, you'll see that it's only applied to her and not the background. And if I want to edit it even further, I can zoom in, and I'll grab my masking brush by hitting B on my keyboard, and I'll decrease the size with the bracket keys on my keyboard. And I'm just going to turn off the perfect brush, and now I can remove this easily from her skin. But I want to leave it on her lips and on her eyes to add detail to them, but I don't want it on her skin. So now if I zoom out and I turn this on and off, you'll notice that the effect is applied to her eyes, her lips, her nose, her hair, and her outfit, but not her skin. So now that we've edited a couple photos inside of Photo RAW, I want to show you how you can composite photos inside of Photo RAW using layers. I'm actually just real quick going to plug in my computer. So just 1 second so it doesn't die. Okay. Sorry about that. I'm back. Okay. So now that we have our layers photos opened up, we can grab a photo or grab our two photos that we want to composite, and we can head over to Layers. And it's going to add these as separate layers inside of Photo RAW so that you can easily blend or mask or composite. So now that we have these two photos opened up in Layers, almost opened up in Layers. And this is where you'd probably want to deal with if you're trying to replace a sky, which I'm going to show you how to do, but you can also replace faces. You can replace textures or backgrounds easily inside of Layers, but you can also do this inside of effects using textures. Because you can mask and blend any effect, you can take your sky images, import them into Photo RAW, and then use them as textures to replace skies. Okay, so now that we have these two photos opened up as layers inside of Photo RAW, we can easily, I'm going to show you how you can replace this sky right here with this sky. So I'm going to first, like I just did, put this layer on top, and then I'm going to turn down the opacity. Actually, rather, I'm opposite. I'm going to put this layer on top, and then I'm going to turn down the opacity. And now I'm going to click on this bottom layer that I want to replace the sky with, and I'm going to select my Move tool, and I'm just going to move it up so that this horizontal line is sort of matching these rocks. Okay, so now that I have it moved, I'm going to grab this layer. I'm going to increase the opacity. And now what I want to do is I just want to use my masking gradient. I'm just going to drop it down. And you'll notice that it replaces this area with the sky on the bottom layer. So I'm just going to pull that up and sort of deal with the feathering to make it look realistic. That looks pretty good. But you'll notice that it's also on my rock here. So again, I'll just grab my masking brush, and I'm going to hit my perfect brush again. And now I can just, oops, I'll make it set to paint, oops, sorry. Make it set to paint in. Now I could just paint in this area on my rock here. And I easily replace that sky. So that's how easy you can replace a sky using layers instead of Photo RAW. Now say you have your photo. Now say you have a photo that you have edited, it's all ready to go, and you want to export it. You can do that easily inside of Photo RAW as well. So if I grab a photo here and I want to export it, all I have to do is head down to my export icon here. My export drawer will roll up, and I have all of the different options to export my photo. I have photo size, where I can adjust a custom size that I like. I have my watermark area, where I can add a, excuse me, a watermark onto my photo. I can add sharpening if I like, tiling, a gallery wrap. I can also change the file type and location. And you can also rename. There's a ton of different options in your export. And if you do have a photo and say it's a different size and it's a little smaller and you want to maybe blow it up into a huge canvas or a huge photo print, you can do that easily using resize inside of Photo RAW. So I grab a photo here and I head over to resize. And I created a custom resize preset that I can use, and it's going to basically blow this up. Let's see how big it is. It's going to blow it up pretty large. Yeah, 30 by 20 inches. So it was at like 100 pixels or something. So it's going to be super large. So if I click enter, now if I zoom in on my photo, it's giving me all of the detail. Oops. It's basically giving me all of the detail on my photo without making it crunchy or anything. It's using a patented genuine fractals algorithm to resize the photo, but maintain the detail and clarity of it, no matter how big you make it. So also in resize, you have different options to use. So you can make a huge print, you can resize your document, you can create different custom settings for yourself, you can create sharpening, you can add film grain and tiling, you can also make it a gallery wrap. So if you wanted to, print your photos out and send them to an art, or send them to a print shop to print your photos, they can have the files ready there to print them for you. So that's basically all I have for the basics in the modules of Photo RAW. Nate, are there any questions? Newt, are you there?
Yeah, Dylan. No new questions coming in right now. If anybody does have any questions, feel free to just click the Q&A there at the bottom and fire away, and I'll be happy to relay those to Dylan for you.
Awesome. Yeah, so that's basically the basics of using Photo RAW. There's obviously a lot more to it and a lot more that you can do within Photo RAW. So if you're looking for tutorials, just head over to on1.com. We have a ton of free videos you can watch, or our YouTube, On1 Software U, youtube.com/On1 Software U, to visit our YouTube channel where we have hundreds and hundreds of videos that you can watch to learn about how to use Photo RAW properly and how you can really take your photo editing to a new level.
Awesome, Dylan. Actually, we had a few more questions come in. If you got a second, we'll go through a couple of these. Ray Brunton would like to know, is it possible to select an element from one image and create a new layer with it? Dylan, you want to take that? If not, I can help.
Yeah, does he mean like by selecting an area on the photo and then copying it into a new layer?
I think so. That's the way I'm reading it.
Yeah, that's not...
You can do that. There is a clipping tool, and so it depends on what you're describing. I think what you're probably trying to do is take one element of an image and drop it into another one.
Oh, okay.
A couple different ways. You could take that image and you could crop it to that size and then just add it to the canvas that you're working on.
Yeah.
Mel would like to know, how do you do multiple gradients? Which is pretty simple, actually. All you need to do to create to apply another gradient would be to click on an area, have the gradient tool selected, and click on another area in the photo to create a new one. Dylan, you can go ahead and show that.
Yeah, so if I make this local adjustment darken, and I'll grab my local adjustment gradient, if I click and drag that here, and then I make it this way, I can just click another way. Oops, sorry. We'll redo this. So I have my local adjustment set to darken, and I'll add a new layer to add another gradient. And then once you add a new layer and you have this local adjustment selected, you can just click and it'll add a new layer for you, or a new gradient for you.
Awesome. I'm just reading through here. It doesn't look like we have any more, unless there's someone that wants to sneak in here at the last minute. I think we've got through all the questions, Dylan.
Okay.
Thanks for the presentation today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I'll just go ahead and say this webinar is being recorded, and we'll post it to the website shortly after it airs, so you can rewatch. And Dylan, take it away.
Thanks so much. Yeah, so that's basically the basics of using On1 Photo RAW. That's kind of how to get started. You know, that's just tapping the ice on what you can do inside of Photo RAW. So just keep practicing. If you have any questions, feel free to hit up our website to find some videos on how to learn different aspects of using Photo RAW, or like I said, our YouTube, where there's tons and tons of free videos on how you can really better yourself using On1 Photo RAW. So thanks so much again for watching. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for more videos and more webinars for the later half of 2019. Or 18, sorry. Thanks so much.